So Mushahid Saab obviously always leaves a difficult sort of, shoes to fill. But I'm going to be much more grounded in my analysis of Pakistan's narrative because I think it is important to know your strengths, but perhaps even more important to know your weaknesses and also to really be able to, as a confident nation, be able to take stock of where we went right, but also where we could have done better, and also where we went wrong. Till we know where we went wrong, we cannot put it right. And because I was specifically asked to talk about Pakistan's national narrative with the context of foreign policy, I thought it might be worthwhile to at least give a go at what is national narrative. How do we define a national narrative, right? And many of us would say that it is reflective of a national or a nation's aspirations, both at the strategic level, but even more important, at the operational level. Because you can have a fine, beautiful, dynamic, national narrative which is there on paper, but if that is not operationalized in the actions that you and your people take in its interaction with the rest of the world, then it will just remain on paper. Something that you may want to push through various channels, but is it something that you are saying or is it something that others are also saying about you? And I feel a successful national narrative is when others talk about your nation in that narrative, rather than us just pushing it within that framework. So, needless to say, you cannot spin a narrative. You have to live the narrative. You have to eat, breathe, and live the narrative, and then it becomes a real reflection of what I said before, your national aspirations both at the strategic and operational level. Now, I'll give you an example which is very relevant, and of course, we cannot talk about Pakistan without having Afghanistan come in one way or the other, right? And I wish it was for all the right reasons, but in the last 3 or 4 decades, unfortunately, instead of something that has enabled us to move forward as a region, to be able to take the benefit of that geographical location as the heart of Asia, unfortunately, because of how things have played out, it is something which has literally bogged us down, right? And in narrative shaping, I think no other example is more relevant and is something that we can all relate to than what happened on the 15th of August and right after that, right? As somebody who was speaking about it, giving interviews, and also living the moment, because we all, everybody sitting on the stage, people sitting on the front row, some all over the place, have burned the midnight oil on the question of Afghanistan. And I often used to say that as foreign minister, I think 50% of my time was consumed on the question of Afghanistan. And we all felt, or at least that we were trying to do the right thing, but it was always interpreted to do the wrong thing. So I was giving you the example of the 15th of August. As things unfolded in a way that no one had predicted, and when I was looking at, only reading yesterday about the US intelligence assessment that, IS can do a fantabulous attack using Afghanistan as a base in their assessment in the next 6 months, I was reminded of their assessment of Afghanistan falling, perhaps to the Taliban in the next 6 months. And therefore, assessments now mean very little when they go so horribly wrong. But coming back to the 15th of August, right after that, as the Taliban or whatever form of people that took over were able to shape a narrative on the go, right? We heard words which were very promising, which offered a window of opportunity, right? Which were all the words that we all wanted to hear, which we were also saying for the last many years. It was inclusivity. It was about giving women a chance to, actualize their full potential. It was about ensuring that they were able to go to schools, they were able to go to their workplace, and more important than anything else, I think what had really bogged Afghanistan down, inclusivity of all the ethnic mixtures. Now, unfortunately, as the interim government came in, and I'm not from government, so I can say this very easily, and as we sit on day, I think 43rd, or certainly since boys have started going to school, the schools have still not opened for girls. So now, no matter what narrative they shape, if that is not operationalized in the actions that they're taken, we will all become skeptics and have less of a tendency to believe what is happening. So that's a good example of how narrative shaping is important, but narrative doing and living that narrative is even more important. So I think it's a settled matter that narrative is not only what you say. Mostly it is seen as what you do, right? And I would like to take the first few moments at least to try and define what Pakistan's national narrative should not be, rather than what it should be, right? What it should not be is antagonistic to any other person, country, polity, geographical reality. It cannot be a healthy, useful, fruitful, positive, forward-looking narrative if it is only defined as an identity which is antagonistic to the other. We are against this, we do not like this, but who are we? And what do we like? And what do we stand for? Is far more important than what do we not stand for. So I believe that Pakistan's, Amartya Sen wrote a book which was named Identity, and in that he beautifully explains how a positive identity is one which is about your strengths and who you are, rather than about what you're against. So for Pakistan, a national identity or a national narrative cannot be one which is oblivious of the various diversities that exist, which are in the cultural realm, which are somewhat in the religious realm also. And really being an amalgam of all these cross-cultural realities of Pakistan, which makes us stronger and which makes us more beautiful as a nation than just being this one silo vision of what we want to be. Now, what's an ideal national narrative? And let me ask you this question. What's an ideal policy on any front, whether it's social, political, foreign? I believe there's only one litmus test of whether it is good or it is not good, whether it works or it does not work. And does it serve Pakistan? Does your national narrative or your foreign policy serve Pakistan? And when we say that this is the litmus test, does it serve Pakistan, what do we mean by Pakistan? What is Pakistan? Pakistan is a name, Pakistan is a nation, but is Pakistan the sum total of its mountains and rivers and geographical boundary? Or is Pakistan the sum total of the idea and ideology we believe that it came in existence for? So shall our national narrative be one to save an ideology? Is that good enough? Some people may argue it is. I would argue that Pakistan, if you want to go into history, and I don't want to go too much into history, I was not asked to talk about history. Pakistan was created so that the Muslims of the subcontinent could fully actualize their full potential. I believe Islam wasn't threatened, but Muslims of the subcontinent certainly were threatened. And they were feeling left off, and they felt that they will not be able to actualize their full potential, whether it is in the cultural sphere, in the religious sphere, in the social sphere, or in the business sphere, and therefore not be able to live up to their full potential. And this is what Sayyid Ahmad Khan, and going on all the way to Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and the many people who became a political force that enabled Pakistan to be. So the litmus test being of any policy, especially of foreign policy, is it serving the people of Pakistan or not? Is it serving the ordinary citizens sitting in Muzaffargarh, Sibbi, anywhere else within the domain of Pakistan? If it is serving the people of Pakistan, it is a successful foreign policy. It is a good national narrative. And when you come down to foreign policy, I think the litmus test is even more simple. Is your foreign policy and the national narrative which is imbibed by it opening doors for the people of Pakistan, for the commerce of Pakistan, for the trade of Pakistan, for investments of Pakistan? Or is it closing doors for the people of Pakistan? If you're able to answer that question, I think we know where we stand and where we want to be. So, in preparation for the correct national narrative, I believe a lot of countries have to follow China's example. We love China for many reasons, right? But I think we must adore China for this particular reason. The famous line, in various forms, this line has been said, bide your time and build your strength. Deng Xiaoping, and also generally considered to be an important proverb now, at least. Now, I believe that every country has to react to what is sent its way, or what the realities of the geographical location are, or the realities of the world order. And right now, could not agree with Mushahid Saab more. There is certainly not only tectonic shifts, but dangerous tectonic shifts on the world order itself, right? Because I believe that instead of uniting the world, we are really the superpowers and the powers that be are very busy right now dividing the world into two fortresses and saying everybody choose one. Do you want to be in this camp or that camp? That is seriously dangerous because we are not living in the 1920s or the 1940s. We are in a very different world order right now. We're in a different reality. So many a times a country, and I believe my country, needs time off from lofty ideals and ideas, right? We do not have to be the preservers of ideas and ideals for the whole world or for the Muslim, people all over the world. We have to be the preservers of a honest living and a good life for the people who inhabit this country called Pakistan. We owe it to them to make Pakistan work both internally and externally, open doors, both by enabling this region to become a good region, a peaceful region, a region where there's trade and commerce and inter-people contacts, and by enabling themselves to be able to live up to their full potential by giving them the best, not just education, but the best of education, the best of health, the best of, commerce and trade facilities that is possible in any country. And that is when Pakistan will really live to its full potential. I think you also have to be realistic about your true place or about your ideal true place, both within the region and in the world, right? So typically sometimes you want to do stuff which may be way beyond your, there is an opportunity cost of everything you do, right? And I'm therefore was very pleased with the decision that the Parliament of Pakistan took on Yemen, right? Because it's fine, we understand the need to, but do we have the resources or are we better of spending those resources within Pakistan's geographical boundaries, right? And so there is an opportunity cost of every decision that you take in foreign policy realm, much more than we typically think possible. And I believe it's also important not for us to seek a seat on every table. There's certain tables where our seat is very important and central, okay? Because when it comes to the question of Afghanistan, we don't seek a seat. Unfortunately, we have a seat. It's the reality of the geographical area and the reality of the 2,600-kilometer boundary that we share with them. It's a reality of the intercultural, interreligious, intergeographical linkages that we have. We cannot but wash our hands off it, fence as we may. And Pakistan would be the best off if we were able to do that, unfortunately. But we don't have that choice. We never exercised that choice. And we were a country which opened our hearts, arms, geographical boundaries, everything to our Afghan brothers. And yet, we are considered by many to not be in their interest. So this is an interesting juxtaposed reality of how. But seeking a seat on every table may not be in our best interest. And as I already said, as we love to give the example of China, China was able to get its people out of poverty and then determine or claim its rights, whether it's in the South China Sea or anywhere else. They took some time off to build their strength internally to be at a point where we can use different nomenclature to describe what is happening in China and on the South China Sea. But if the country is not internally strong and able to fend for itself and pay its bills, then for it to have for its ability to defend what is its own is also always suffers. And as I said before, I'm just going to repeat it for the sake of emphasis. We have to be realistic about our inherent strengths, but even more realistic about our inherent weaknesses. Okay, so when I was talking about building your internal strengths, I mean yesterday's and day before's headlines, the Prime Minister's tweet, the Finance Minister's tweet, pretty much everyone's tweet, and the successful $3 billion aid facility that has come from Saudi Arabia. It's a good thing. It's by no means a bad thing. But for a country to constantly require that, an oil facility, is what I'm referring to in being able to build your strengths to be able to have a foreign policy in which you can be your own, in which you are not, don't owe, in which there are no IOUs. Right? In which IOU is only to the citizens of Pakistan, and their interests run supreme in whatever choices you make. So now that doesn't mean you have a national narrative which is, or a foreign policy which is never mindful of your interest or not able to defend those interests. Now, what should Pakistan's general, just 4 or 5 points on what should be our national narrative on the foreign policy front. We seek non-interference within and without. We choose not to interfere in any other country, and we must have the ability to ensure that no country is able to interfere in Pakistan's affairs and create trouble for Pakistan through terrorist organizations, which we've seen in the past, through another country or through its own soil. We seek peace within and without. And this is again very important, okay? Because peace within, TLP, already, you know, we're all checking which motorway is open, which will close soon. I have to head back to Lahore within 4 hours for another meeting, and you know, this is something. Now, you have to, in order to seek within, you have to create an atmosphere where everybody can coexist, but no one can challenge the sanctity of the state. The state must have monopoly over the use of violence. That is it, and that is a lesson Pakistan has learned with hard blood, money, and lots of lives. We cannot let that lesson go away. And I'm very proud of the fact, and this is a major achievement for Pakistan, and this is what I think many other countries need to learn from also, that Pakistan's national narrative changed in the last 2 decades. With the coming of democratic regimes, we were able to take ownership of this war as being our war, and we sent our soldiers within our geographical boundaries. How many countries in the world have the courage to do that? To own a war which has in some ways been enforced on you, because pre-9/11, how many suicide bomb attacks did Pakistan have? 1, literally, I counted. And after that, we lost count, 330 in one day and God knows how many in the other. And then we were able to take that back. We were able to take what was ours back, and we were able to tell people who said, oh, we're fighting somebody else's war, that yes, it might have been somebody else's war, but today it is our war, because the APS in which the children die are Pakistani children. It is our war because our children are dying. So we took hold of that. We were able to now come to a place where Pakistan, mashallah, by and large, is a peaceful country. We don't have to send more military. But as we see this escalation in Afghanistan, this instability in Afghanistan, we are seeing an escalation of violence around the border areas. And this is extremely dangerous. And for all the wins that we've had, I think it will be, we will not be able to forgive ourselves if the state gives away its exclusivity and monopoly on the use of violence. This is what makes a state strong. So seek peace within, and once we are able to seek peace within, I think you are in a much better place to seek peace within the region. When you're stronger within, you're able to speak to your interlocutors from a place of strength. I also like my ex-colleague in Turkey, Mr. Davutoglu's book refers to it, about seeking 0 problems with your neighbors, literally 0 problems. And if you look at it again, I'm going to go back to China, for many, many decades, that's what China followed. Turkey followed it for a while and then stopped following it, and you can see it in their currency, literally. I mean, what we do has an impact everywhere, on everything. So seek 0 problems with our neighbors would be point number 3. And then point number 4, do not get embroiled in other conflicts. You may be their friends. You may even completely agree with their need to use force or their need to send troops, but if it is not your immediate problem, it is not your problem. You don't have the resources to get embroiled in others' problems, and I will already give the example of Yemen, which I think is an excellent example. And then invest deeply in a stable neighborhood. And I know this is absolutely becoming more and more difficult as more time passed, for more than any other reason than the pivot shift that India has taken. And make no mistake, I mean, this shift is not something that is in our hands, and India may do well by learning from Pakistan what happened during the Zia years, how it took us a long while, what happened during the first Afghan-Soviet invasion, and how once you pollute minds, you can give people guns and never be able to take them back. But once you pollute people's minds, those minds are there for you to stay intergenerational. And you cannot plug it on or off. So once this extremism pollutes people's minds, you cannot plug it off. And we're seeing India play through those very, play through those motions as we speak. Now my point is that India can be India. Okay, India can be Modi's India. But should Pakistan want to be Modi's, reflect that? I think we should be diametrically opposite. And I do believe we are diametrically opposite in many, many ways. And I do believe that is our true strength. We must not react to Modi's India. We must remain a liberal, progressive Pakistan which shows through its actions what it wants for the neighborhood. And then your short-term, your medium-term, your long-term goal eventually has to be, at whatever cost, to normalize relations with each of our neighbors to the best of our ability, and never to give the impression that you have interests which go beyond seeking good relations with them. That is it. That's it. Their problems are their internal problems, their intra-dialogues are their intra-dialogues, they do them. Whatever they put as government, it is our job. And I do believe that that's something that Pakistan has tried in the last 20 years and done quite well vis-a-vis Afghanistan, no matter what the world says. And I want to just spend maybe 2 minutes on this whole Afghan, because as an ex-foreign minister, I think I can't lose this opportunity to be able to say that, because many a times, I mean, not many a times, but ever since I think very early on, since this experiment or adventure started in Afghanistan, a few decades back, 2 decades back, Pakistan was considered to be the best possible option to blame for all that was going wrong. Now, as more and more literature is coming in, even Segar's report, Special Inspector General of Afghanistan Reconstruction, which is a US Congress authorized body, their report tells you what all went wrong, how the money would not even reach the soldiers, and the soldiers who were meant to or expected to fight were not even paid their bills for or their salaries for three months, even we were expecting them to give their lives. Now, I'm just going to point out 4 things that Pakistan used to typically say in closed-door meetings to the Afghans and to the Americans and to everyone who was there to listen, to try and say how we feel things could have been better. Pakistan, for instance, said from the very beginning that in Born One, Taliban in one form or the other should be an inclusive body, right? That the government should be inclusive, and those elements who want to. Now we have books over books written over how that offer came to Karzai and perhaps not given to the Americans, and the Americans said it was given to us, but we didn't think anything of it, and oh, only if we had done that. When Pakistan said that, Pakistan was considered to be playing the Taliban card, right? Then Pakistan said, please be careful on what type of constitution you come. It should be acceptable to all the various ethnicities. It should be acceptable to the real diversity. If Pakistan is diverse, Afghanistan is even more diverse. Okay, and then it was said, oh, Pakistan always has interests. It wants to preserve somebody else's interest. Then only yesterday, I think all of our friends, Mr. Bani Rubin, gave an interview to BBC and said what Pakistan had always been saying. Please be careful when you want to grow this military to the strength that you want to grow. It was 300,000 plus. And that as things may not go so well, this will be small ethnic groups who will be armed to be able to have more civil war rather than less. Okay, and now Mr. Rubin tells us, and many other people tell us, that really the Afghan military force was built in a way where it was supposed to be a shadow of the American forces. The moment the American forces exited, it was almost like they fell on their faces, because they were highly technologically advanced. And once you take that technology away and wrap it up, literally pack it up and take it to DC back, what happened? And then, of course, the constant Pakistani talking point about the need to have an intra-Afghan dialogue before the exit, and the need to be able to, within the Ghani government, to be able to involve or include, for the Ghani government to also become more inclusive. Again, Pakistan. Now, of all of these points, which are turning now to be literally true, and the whole world is agreeing to these mistakes having been made, Pakistan was talking about them all the time. Maybe because we knew the region better, maybe because we knew Afghanistan better, maybe because just the fact that we have a 2,600-kilometer border with them, right? And yet it was Pakistan trying to do something wrong, something nefarious always. So this is when your reputation comes in the way of you being able to, and I believe it's not a reputation that Pakistan deserved, the one that we have with the Afghans. And then I think we all know in shaping of what to do, countries have no permanent interests, permanent friends, countries only have permanent interests, and that goes back to my point of those permanent interests are defined by what works for the citizens of Pakistan, and that is it. So as I said before, that by no means mean that we may never defend what is ours. We never defend what is our interest. We should absolutely, when it comes to territorial integrity, when it comes to the sovereignty of Pakistan, it is our job to defend it. And therefore, I'll give you another example. 2 years back, when the Indian planes came inside Pakistani territorial border, it would have been absolutely wrong for Pakistan not to react. There are times when you have to preserve and your territorial integrity and your sovereignty. And for a nation to step down then is an absolute wrong. So I'm glad what happened, and everything came back to place. So all in all, I think if I were to wrap up, I think our national narrative on foreign policy is one where we seek no problems with other and seek not to give any problems to anyone else. I have often said in the context of Pakistan and India that Pakistan is living its reputation of the decades back, which was post-Soviet invasion and the Zia time. And therefore, countries look at us still skeptically. India is living the reputation of Nehru and Manmohan Singh up till that time. The internalization of the Modi India, of what it means, has not really happened in the world. Once it does, I think the world's reaction may also change. Now, the challenges that we face, just quickly, 3 challenges, and I will stop at that, is first of all, the really worsening situation on the world order, okay? And how the US and China and the rivalry is now coming center force, and countries are being forced to literally take sides, can only lead the world to a far, far worse place than it has already been in. Then I think an ever-present challenge to Pakistan has always been its geography, its location. And whereas as a kid I used to, and I think each one of us read about how this was God's gift to earth and how this is a real potent location and how this gives us a central. Unfortunately, you have to call a spade a spade. We have not been able to actualize that centrality in a positive way for all that has been happening in the region, and many of us will say that whatever India has stood for has a lot to do with it, whatever that may be. I think Pakistan has to choose to be what it wants to be rather than react to what somebody else is being. And then, of course, the third challenge that comes in Pakistan being able to shape any narrative is what is happening in Afghanistan. But I believe that we should only be mindful of what works for us, and what works for us is to be at peace within, to be secure within, to concentrate all our energies within. So we are at a place where our words have more value and more weight when we exercise them with the rest of the world.